All right, let's talk Las Vegas Raiders. Obviously, been a major offseason of change for the Raiders, bringing in new head coach, new GM, a lot of volatility, much of it really strong, smart decisions to get this team headed to a stable direction, set up for medium and long-term success, and maybe short-term success as well. A lot of that will rely on what they do at the quarterback position, and we've got a very interesting update on that specifically. Exciting times for Vegas ahead, but first, I'm Nick, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, when we look at the Raiders hires, what we've seen is a lot of moves to this front office and to the coaching staff to create a strong support structure for a quarterback, whether it's a veteran, a young guy, first-time starter, or a guy who's played a lot of football. They're creating an environment where anyone can come in and succeed. And to that end, the Raiders now have been linked to maybe the biggest possible addition they could make this offseason. Let's pull up this report according to Pro Football Sports Network, and this involves Aaron Rodgers, now leaving the New York Jets, and how he could be connected to the Raiders. With Rodgers set to enter free agency at 41, speculation has turned to what's next. PFSN's Ben Rolfe offered a bold prediction that he would land with the Raiders. The Las Vegas Raiders did not hire Pete Carroll for a long rebuild. At 73 years old, Carroll is unlikely to be there for the long haul, which means the Raiders need to take the step to challenge sooner rather than later. I don't disagree. Picking 6 in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Raiders are unlikely to see either Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders fall to them. A trade-up to get either would be expensive, and there's no guarantee it would be any more successful than a gamble on Rodgers. Rodgers is a relatively cheap experiment in 2025. He would only cost $9.5 million against the cap and $37.5 million in cash for the year. With more than $90 million in cap space, the Raiders can also make moves to enhance Rodgers' chance of succeeding. Obviously, Aaron Rodgers' experiment with the New York Jets did not work out. But look, we know every quarterback basically for the past 25 years has failed with the New York Jets. So to blame that solely on Rodgers getting old, I think is a little bit of a, maybe a cop out there. Brett Favre famously failed with the Jets, then did good things with the Vikings. And look, this Raiders team article, the writer here, the reporter, makes a great point. Pete Carroll, 73. They're looking to return to stability and success. Maybe they're not set up for a long-term rebuild. Aaron Rodgers could be the guy. In fact, a lot of people are starting to think he may be the next Raiders quarterback. Miles, I know you've got a few thoughts on this, but first, Raider Nation, in the comments section below, give us your thoughts on Aaron Rodgers coming to Las Vegas to be the starting quarterback for the Raiders. Give it a grade, right? Do you love the idea? A+. Do you hate it? F. Wait and see. C. Give us your thoughts on this hypothetical Aaron Rodgers to the Las Vegas Raiders. Maybe it's not hypothetical by the time you hear this. Who knows? Maybe it actually has happened. Give us your thoughts, though, in the comment section below. But, Miles, your turn now. What do you think of this report involving the Raiders, Rodgers, and just everything going on with the quarterback position in Las Vegas?
Yeah, Nick, I think this is a really intriguing option, especially there's a couple things that make me like it is it's not too expensive. It's definitely something that's worth considering for the price. It's like, does the price match the risk? And I think absolutely, yes, it does. Because, like you said, the Jets, they were just dysfunctional. And I think the Raiders the last few years would have been in the same situation. I know they were linked to Rodgers earlier at one point in time as well. But is that the case here? I don't think that those two things really had any impact on stuff. I think Rodgers coming to a team now in the Raiders that are much less dysfunctional. I really like all the hires they made coaching staff-wise. I like what they're doing under the new Tom Brady spy tech leadership. I really like all the moves that they've been making. I think this is a gamble that can pay off. I think this is a Matthew Stafford-esque Rams type of gamble that you could play. Does it immediately win you a Super Bowl? I'm not 100% sure, but that is the point here. I don't rule it out in my mind. Could I see Rodgers leading the Raiders to, deep playoff run? Do they have a lot of great players on this team? Yeah, I do think so, and I think there's a lot of great coaching staff involved as well. I think Carroll is a guy who, he knows what's going on in the NFL. He knows playoff championship caliber teams. I really think the more you look at this move, it could be really intriguing. But the other way we're looking at this is the two things that were said in here I think are really important. Is one, Carroll is here, let's say, for a good time, not a long time. And you think 5 years from now, if he's still the coach of this team, that's pretty good. Anywhere past that, I would be wary if he's going to still be coaching in the NFL. I think this is more of a short-term turnaround type play for the Raiders. And the second thing we're talking about is, do the Raiders have the draft capital, all of the assets to jump up into the draft and get either Cam Ward or Shedeur Sanders. I don't think they do to get Ward. I think they potentially do to get Sanders. But is it worth spending all of that money on a guy who has been reportedly falling in the draft rankings lately? Do you want to risk all of that potential valuable draft capital to go and get Sanders, or is it worth it to maybe, invest in some weapons? You're in a great spot to get some really great weapons with the picks that they do have. Could that be something that helps set up a more favorable system for Aaron Rodgers? I think so, because like you said, last year, the Jets, Rodgers, he did admirably. If you look at his numbers, the numbers were good, but that team as a whole, there's a lot of injuries, there was coaching dysfunction, there's all kinds of things that held the team back. I think this is setting up really nice. So every way you look at it, I think it's something the Raiders at least need to consider. And if everything meets up, this seems like the best match of Aaron Rodgers to the team I have seen in quite some time now.
Well, it matches their strategic alignment, right? We talked about this before. Every Raiders hire they've made seems to be pointing in one direction: stability. They don't want to go through a long process of trying to slowly climb the way out of a rebuild. They want to get to 7, 8, 9, 10 playoff wins, again, right? They don't want to go through, hey, we're going to bring in a young quarterback and hopefully can turn it around. Now, honestly, with the moves for a while, I was wondering if they're going to try and go a Jaden Daniels Washington experiment and maybe give up just an incredible amount of draft capital, draft a Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward, and then go that route. But the reality is that when you think about it, what Jaden Daniels did with Washington, that's an aberration, right? That's happened maybe once a decade on average, probably a lot less. I think of Roethlisberger in 2004, Dak Prescott in 2016, and then Jaden Daniels in 2024, right? So you're basically betting on, a once-in-a-decade experiment, and you're going to give up all those draft picks to do that. That seems like a poor decision, honestly. It seems like a desperate decision. I think going after a guy like Rodgers makes a lot of sense, and the changes he can bring to this organization, just with some stability, knowing that you have some standard of competency at that quarterback position going forward. And I think this is a Raiders team, and we've seen it this entire offseason. They are gearing themselves 100% for stability, right? They're not about bringing in and making trades and dead moves and things like that just to completely upset the apple cart here. And that's not who Brady is. Brady's heavily involved. Brady was just a pillar of stability with the New England Patriots, consistent. Day in, day out, week in, week out, year in, year out for the New England Patriots. That's the attitude he's bringing. And if you look at all the moves they made, every single one, down to lower level front office guys to GM to head coach, it's about bringing some respectability and consistency into the organization, a standard of performance, a standard of competence. You bring in a rookie quarterback, there is no standard. We don't know what to expect. Could be really great, could be really bad, right? Wide variance. You bring in Rodgers, you know what to expect. I think this is actually the direction the Raiders were going before I saw this report and before you and I talked about it. I wasn't 100% sure, but now it seems this is the most likely move for the Raiders to make at the quarterback position because it perfectly aligns with their offseason strategy.